Somebody's got to nitpick him because his family sure doesn't. They just kind of let him do whatever he wants to do.
When has he been given the opportunity to do anything with this child?
Welcome to Rebel Chaser. My name is Gail, and I have a video for you from Judge Wolf. And I'm not going to say much. I will just let you guys watch this.
You wish to make an opening statement? Rule has been requested, so anyone who's going to be a witness in this case other than the parties must go outside of the courtroom and remain outside of the courtroom till you yourself are called to testify. You're not to discuss the testimony of any other witness with anyone until you yourself have testified. Counsel are under a continuing duty to ensure that the rule is complied with.
Judge, what we have here today is a paternity action that was filed in August of 2024. We've worked feverishly to get in court on this matter, but have had several resets due to opposing counsel's calendar and a change in counsel, the mother of the minor child. Changed counsel from Ms. Myers to Mr. Baker. We're finally in court on this today. What we would show, and the evidence will show, that the parties have been in a relationship or were in a relationship since about 2021. As a product of that relationship, Zane Tyler Westcott was born on August the 18th, 2023. The parties remained together until February of 2024. They lived under the same roof, and Mr. Westcott was the support in the family, financial support in the family, and he bonded with the child. And parties separated in February of 2024, and subsequent to that date, the mother started withholding the minor child from Mr. Westcott. Mr. Westcott, I think Your Honor will observe, is quiet-natured, not one to make a big fuss or try to upset the apple cart. He has been upset with his visitation arrangements since February of 2024. The mother has required that all of his visits be supervised at her home for 4 hours at a time on a weekly basis, but the mother has never provided Mr. Westcott with any reason, despite his repeated requests of, why won't you allow me to have the child outside of your presence or your mother or your grandmother's presence? She would never explain that other than the child is more comfortable in my home, period. That was her explanation. In June of 2024, the parties filed, filed a petition, and immediately upon filing the petition, the mother was served within a day, and an answer was provided in July of 2024. When counsel started discussing the case, I asked to enter an agreed order of paternity, and counsel refused to do that, said that they would insist on DNA testing. DNA testing took almost 3 months for the mother to agree to do the DNA testing. I told her that since the father signed a voluntary acknowledgement and she signed off on it too, that it was the mother's responsibility to get that testing, and it did not occur for approximately 3 months. We begged for it, Your Honor. Finally got tested, and the mother insisted on testing despite having repeatedly sending text messages to the father that she never cheated on him, that he...
Opening statement is a statement of what she expects the proof to show, so I'm overruling your objection. I accept that as argument of counsel and not evidence. You may proceed.
So, Your Honor will hear evidence today that despite begging for genetic testing, it took almost 3 months to get it, and when genetic testing came back, it was confirmed that he was in fact the father. Immediately reset, and it was not conducive to opposing counsel's calendar. So we set it to today, and there was a motion to continue put it on the calendar for today, but it's been waived. Are you striking your motion to continue? Okay. And so we're before this court today to establish paternity number one, which at this point I do not think is disputed. So I'm asking the court to establish paternity. I'm asking the court to establish child support. My client is before this court. He wants to pay child support. Evidence is going to show today that he has repeatedly paid child support throughout the pendency of this matter, but that the mother has done everything she can to block those payments. She cut him off. She cut him off on Venmo, and she did several other things in order to preempt him from being able to give child support. She says she doesn't need it. But Your Honor is going to hear testimony that when he comes to visitation, especially in the last several months, that he does not come empty-handed. He comes with products for the baby and for child support, money, child support. Court's going to hear that mother does not allow the father to participate in doctor's appointments, only telling him about them after the fact. Father is able to obtain health insurance for the minor child. Child is on TennCare right now. He's ready and willing, knows the price. Father is in school and is working a full-time job for Wolf and Travis Electric. He's bettering himself, but is not able to exercise time. We're asking for this court to award, based on the mother's bad acts, we're asking the court to, in attempt to alienate the father, we're asking the court to give him 50-50 care of the child. I will tell the court that mother probably will try to bring up his past criminal history. However, it's going to be important for the court to note that that's outside the scope of the pleadings, as parties continued in a relationship after the criminal issues and conceived the child subsequent to any criminal issues. My client has successfully completed probation and is doing a great job.
Mr. Baker, you wish to make a statement?
Here is that the father paid minimal support. Gone for almost a year. I think the testimony is going to be $360 he's paid to the mother in child support, and paid token amounts, a couple of packs of diapers, I think 4 pieces of clothes articles, and 2 cans of formula is his monumental contribution to child support in the time that he's been moved out. And as for his DUI convictions and things of that nature, I say that is material to the fact that I'm raising a child and I know I need to transport a child, and whether I have a driver's license, whether I was arrested, whether I was charged after that DUI for violating and driving without a license and outside my restrictions and so forth, I think that is material, Judge. And you'll hear how that transpired and so forth. And the mother is not trying to avoid a visitation with the father. What she's concerned about is things such as his careless behavior when he's with the child, some things that he's done that shows that he is probably not at the maturity level to be left alone with the child, and the fact that he has a history of drug and alcohol abuse. There's some serious concerns here. And I will let the parties tell what happened.
Ms. Duke, you may call your first witness. Westcott, come around, raise your right hand, and be placed under oath.
If you would, Mr. Westcott, please state your name for the record.
I'm Chase Tyler Westcott.
And Mr. Westcott, where are you currently working?
Wolf and Travis Electric.
Okay, and what are you making with them?
I make $23 an hour now.
Okay, and what are your hours of employment?
6 a.m. to 2:30 every day.
And are you in school?
Yes, I go to Achieve Trade School.
Okay, what are you doing there?
finishing up getting my journeyman's license. I finished my second year of schooling in April, and I will begin my third year after that.
Okay. And will you be done after your third year?
No, ma'am, I gotta go for 4 years.
And what days are you in school?
Wednesday and Thursday after work.
If the court awards you weekly visitation with this, with the minor child, or awards you custody for that matter, do you have family help to assist you in care for the child?
Yes,
Now, where are you currently residing? What is your address?
1119 Galleon Road, Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee.
And who lives there with you?
My sister and her family.
And does the minor child have a room in that home?
Yes.
And are you wanting the court to allow the minor child to come and stay overnight in that home?
Yes.
Is it a safe environment?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it a stable environment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how long have you been there?
Since I moved out of
Okay.
our house, which was the end of February, so almost a year.
February 2024? And you two had this minor child out of wedlock, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And at any point in time prior to the filing of this petition, did the mother of this minor child deny that this child was yours prior
Never.
to the filing?
Never.
After we filed this petition for visitation, did the mother start denying that the child was yours?
Yes, obviously.
Okay. Were you required to have to submit to paternity testing?
Yes.
Now, during the pendency of this petition, have you asked for visitation with this minor child?
Yes.
Okay. And what visitation have you been provided?
4 hours on one day, which could have also been 2 hours, 2 different days of the week, but the other days I were given were my school days, so it was 4 hours on Monday.
Okay. And does she require that those be supervised in her home
Yep.
with her family?
Yeah.
Okay. Who all's present for those?
The grandmother and the mom every time.
Have you offered for your mother to
Yes.
help supervise?
Dane, don't leave the witness.
Have you offered any remedies for
Yes.
her concerns about you?
You can bring them to my mom's. My mom can pick them up and bring them over here. You know,
And has she allowed for that to happen?
No.
Has she kept the minor children from your family?
I would say yes. She brought them over on Christmas and the holidays. She does bring Zane around on the holidays, but nothing past the holidays.
Has your mom had to visit the child in the mother's home?
You mean her mother, son? Yes.
During these 4-hour visitations, do you provide support for the minor child?
Yes, I have.
Said yes.
Okay.
Overruled.
Thank you, Judge. Have you asked her if she needed support?
Every Friday, except for the 3 months I was hurt, and I have that in text messages.
And did you get hurt on the job?
No, ma'am.
What did you get hurt doing?
My L4 and L5 disc went out. I was with my nephews in the shop, and I went to lay down on the pavement, and they went out.
And during the 3 months that you were out of work, did you try to provide support to the child?
Not during the 3 months I was out of work. No, ma'am.
Is that from June to August?
Yes, ma'am.
During that time period, did the mother repeatedly tell you she didn't need anything?
Yes.
I'm going to let him look through these. Did it surprise you when her counsel made suggestions that everything you've given the child has been minimal and token?
Sustained.
Have you only given token and minimal support to this child?
I don't think so. Except for the 3 months I was hurt.
Have you had occasion to send Venmos and they come back to you?
So I told her, I probably have this in text message. It's over there. I also sent a screenshot of this. So I said, I'm just going to start sending you $50 a week, you know, because I didn't know what to get. When they say I should know, but I only see him 4 hours a week. So how do I know what he's running out of?
When you
So
say
I
they
sent-
say you should know, who is they?
Kaylin, the grandmother, the mom.
Are they critical of you?
I don't know what that word means.
Okay, are they tough on you?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
So I texted Kaylin, I'm going to send you 50 a week and send it on Venmo right then. So the next week comes around and I go to send it and it blocked. And then, so I try Cash App and she says she don't know the login to Cash App anymore. And then even to this day, if I try to hand her cash, she ignores me.
Do you know why she's doing that? Did she explain to you why?
No, I know she's real independent and that's not a bad thing. But I want to help. And I've shown that in text messages. I want to help.
Is it tough on you to talk about her like this?
Dude, I hate hurting Kaylin.
How long were you two together?
2 years.
And during that time frame, was she similarly independent?
Kaylin has always been a real independent.
Did you, until February of 2024, from the child's birth to February 2024, did you pay the rent at the home where y'all were living?
Yeah, we split the rent.
Okay.
But Kaylin, so I switched jobs when I got that. And I made less than I make now, like a significant amount less, like hundreds of dollars a week less. And besides us splitting rent, Kaylin I took care of like bills and food. She paid a lot more. Absolutely. But I also was going to school and eventually one day we were engaged. I planned on marrying that woman. So I eventually planned on being able to pay more. I mean, I went to school, I went to work. I was trying.
And until February of 2024, you were keeping the child. Is that correct?
Sustained.
Tell me about your, when the two of you were living together. Tell me about your time with the minor child.
Okay. Well, there were sometimes she had to go to work and she was fine with if she left him with me then. You know, it wasn't until we weren't together that it was a problem. And yeah.
Now, her dad had a heart attack this week. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
On Monday.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me who the first person was that she called when that happened?
What is the relevance?
That he's a reliable person. She relied on him during that time period.
I was just calling him to tell him about her father. I mean, obviously they were together, and there was a relationship between them. So
I'm laying a foundation. There's one more question I need to ask to get there.
ask your other question.
Who did she ask to come to the hospital to be with her?
Me.
I mean, he's security enough that he's the first person that she calls when her dad has a heart attack, but he's not security enough to even have this child for 10 minutes by himself.
Overrule the objection. I'm allowing it for the limited purpose of showing whatever the nature of their relationship is, which hopefully will continue despite this acrimonious and hostile hearing that we're going to have today. They're going to have to parent this child together, and I'm going to put out an order that will, after we finish today, but hopefully they can continue to be close enough that she can let him know if something happens and she wants him to be there for her father. And I think that's a great thing. It doesn't speak badly of her, and it doesn't speak badly of him. I think it speaks good of both of them. So I would compliment them both for that reason. Did you go to the hospital?
I was on my way. I jumped up immediately and was on my way when she texted me, "It's fixed. He got a stent." And there's a little bit more of that text. I don't have a phone in here. Then I called her and I let her know if it gets worse, I will be there. She said, "I know."
Well, I think that's a good thing. So I'm going to allow it for that limited purpose.
Now, your relationship with the child, what is the child's disposition when you arrive to visitation?
Happy to see me.
And what is his disposition when you prepare to leave after your 4 hours?
Lately, the past couple of times, he cries when I leave, and it's hard to leave.
It hurt your heart?
Yeah.
You may.
They're all different. I stopped at like 60 or 70. I had more.
And during this
I'm able to help Zane out now. Why not let me? I'm trying. Doesn't need your help. I have all that he needs.
did you ask her for visitation?
Oh,
Was
yeah.
she allowing you to see him?
Yes. In the beginning, it even says also you went from letting me come over and see him whenever I want to only a few hours a week.
She explained to you why she wasn't allowing
Not really.
you?
Did you show Mr. Baker? You've seen him. She gets to ask the questions. You get the cross-examination of him.
All right. What did you say to her right here?
I know, but I want to help my son. So let me, like, I'm just trying to help. I'm his dad. Let me help.
What did she say?
Chase, I don't need it. Thank you anyways. I appreciate the effort. Why won't you let me help? That's so crazy. Chase, keep your money. Please stop.
Her attorney. Is that a surprise to you?
Absolutely.
Was this the first or last time that you asked if she needed anything?
No, I mean, I stopped at 60. There's more. Every Friday, other than when I was hurt.
Then she started limiting your time. What question?
2 times a week for a couple hours is not fair. How would you feel if the roles are reversed? I did nothing wrong. You barely let me see him. You say whenever I want, but you don't let me see him whenever I want. It's ridiculous. He sent nothing, so I sent a question mark. Chase, I did not leave you so that I got to spend more nights with you. You have my son, though, and won't let me see him unless I'm over there, so it's not about you. No, you're right. It's not about me. It's about Zane, and that's exactly why you can see him here where he is comfortable.
Only explanation she's ever given you about why you can't see your child.
When I asked if I could why can't you just come over to my mom's and she didn't have to be there? She would say, because I don't know how to do everything. There, that calls for you to come over more. You're choosing to only let me see him there because he is comfortable here. He doesn't know your family at all. Or because you choose to not give him that chance. Said, I mean, you told me Friday and Sunday. It sucks. You changed the plans for the race. Chase, I didn't need to know. I didn't know about the race. Please don't start being ugly. I'm not, but you didn't know about me seeing him Sunday and decided the race was more important. I also invited you to go, and then I wrote, and then you told me it was too soon. Like it was too soon for me to be around everybody at a race. And
What kind of race?
her dad races dirt bikes. Her brother.
And so she said you could go and then said you couldn't.
Yeah, said it was too soon.
And are the text messages all very similar to what
Yeah.
Mark them as Exhibit 1.
Sir, you filed this petition. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you want child support to be started. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you tried to evade child support?
Nope.
If this court says you owe $1 million in child support, do you care as long as you get to see your child?
Do not care.
Careful what you say, Mr.
I've been around him enough that I actually think that's true, Judge. May I? Are you asking that you be allowed a 50-50 equal schedule with the minor child?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you prepared and ready to support and physically care for the minor child 50% of the time? And outside of hurting the mother in this case, would you have sought full custody?
Yes.
But you don't want to take away from the mother, do you?
Oh, she's a good mom.
Okay. Look through that parenting plan. Is that the parenting plan you're asking for the court to approve today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the one I looked at earlier.
You reviewed it shortly before we came in here. Is that
Yes, ma'am.
correct? Okay, Judge, we'd submit that as the next one.
Mark it as next. It would be 2.
At your current employment, are you eligible for health and dental for the minor child?
Yeah, I have to pay $80 a week until I'm out of school, and then it would be covered. So I've already called about it. So to add Zane, I have to pay $80 extra a week.
Okay, and are you ready and able to do that?
Yeah, that's why I've already called. Got it.
And have we tried to work out doing that with their counsel? Getting the paternity established and doing that?
Yes.
Sustained, I don't think that would be admissible.
Have you been eligible since this petition was filed to get that insurance?
Yes.
And is it a good policy?
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
At any time subsequent to the conception of the minor child, have you been in trouble?
No.
Have you successfully completed probation?
Yes.
Have you tested negative on every drug screen?
Yes.
I was just speeding it up, but we can ask
Sustained.
specifically. Have there been any issues with probation?
No.
And what were your requirements as a part of probation?
I had to pass random drug screens. I had to work full time. I had to make payments there and to the courthouse. And attend 2 AA meetings a week.
And are you still doing that?
I don't attend all the time, but yeah, I do go to some.
If the court wanted you to attend regularly, do you have any problem with
No, ma'am.
that? Was the mother of the minor child fully aware of your criminal record when this child was conceived? Absolutely. If he
Absolutely
told her,
can.
Hold
Hold
on.
on.
When there's an objection, you just need to sit quiet. Just do it.
absolutely, she has personal knowledge if he told her.
Then I think you need to lay a foundation the way your question is asked. Asking a question that there's no foundation of how he would know what a response would be. So
Did
I'll
you,
sustain the question, sustain the objection in the present form, allow you to restate.
were you two together when you got in trouble?
Yeah.
When you got convicted, did she know about your conviction?
Yes.
And were you honest and open with her about those?
From the very start, when I met her, I was in drug court, and to go on a second date in drug court, you have to tell your date everything, and then your date has to get approved by this court system. And then Doug Beecham has to go and meet your date. And if you didn't tell everything, Doug Beecham was about to tell everything. He knew everything before she went on the second date with me.
So she knew everything about you before she went on her second date.
Absolutely.
And her second date was in 2021 with you, is that correct?
Yes.
And she became pregnant with this child in 2023.
Yes.
If this court needed you to take a drug screen, aside from your injured foot and injured back, I mean, you may have had, did you have to go to the hospital for your back or your foot?
Yes.
Okay. And were you administered medication there?
Yes.
Aside from that medication, would you pass a drug screen?
100%.
And when did you injure your foot? Do you recall?
It's been over a month. I know that. I can't.
Okay. When did you injure your back? Was that in June?
June. Yes.
Do you take full responsibility for your past?
100%.
How long have you been employed with Wolf and Travis?
For 2 years.
And you've been in school for how long, did you say?
Almost 2 years. Like in a month or two. 2 years.
You had any issues with them? You have a driver's license?
Yes.
At some point in time, were you cited for driving on a revoked license?
Yes.
Was that a mistake?
Yes.
Tell me what happened with that charge.
So I was in a company truck, and it was raining that day. I had like pipe and stuff in the back of the truck. It's heavy conduit. And a lady stops in front of me, and I go to stop, and I just slide, and I bump her. And she didn't speak much English, but at first she just wanted to exchange information and leave. But I'm in a company truck, so I'm like, no, we'll wait on the police. And then the traffic kind of police pull up, and they're like, oh, y'all can just exchange information. And once again, I'm like, no, I'm in a company truck. I need to wait on the actual police. Because her car had been in prior wrecks, you could tell. And I didn't want her trying to blame that on my company. And well, when they got there, the cop was like, you aren't supposed to be driving. You're supposed to have a blow and go in the vehicle. I'm like, I've never needed that. I'm on probation, I promise. And he didn't want to hear it. He took me to jail. And I went to court with a signed notion from that judge saying I never needed a blow and go. And a piece of paper saying all my fines have been paid. Handed it to the DA. The DA acknowledged my case. I walked out. I was in the courtroom for like 15 seconds, but I did have to go to jail.
And that was initially, not after they dismissed it. Is that correct?
Yes, that was initially. That day, I mean, that cop was not listening to me, even though I was like, I have a probation officer you can call. He didn't hear none of that. So.
You may.
Yeah.
And does that indicate that you make $23 an hour?
No, this one is 22. I just started making 23. I just got a raise.
You just now got a raise?
So when I sent this, I didn't have first week January pay stub yet.
So in addition to this, we need to add $1. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, I'd submit this as the next marked exhibit and ask the court to make a note that he's got $1 raise with the new year.
What?
Is there anything else you'd like to tell this court about Zane or about the mom or about anything that's gone on in your relationship with the child?
Just I love my son. I want to be a good dad. I want to be there. I want to be given the opportunity to be a good dad. 4 hours a week ain't much. And I don't think it's fair at all. And I would never take that time away from her. And I absolutely do not think how I'm being treated is fair. I don't think anyone should not get to see their son. They're really trying.
Do you think it's in your child's best interest to have more time with you?
100%.
And are you asking this court to make sure that you're made part of the child's doctor and dental appointments? Have you been made a part of the child's doctor appointments?
The objection yet.
I mean, it is leading. I don't mind.
You more or less agreed with him and started changing your questions. So she sustained your objection, Mr. Baker.
Has she made you a part of the child's doctor appointments?
She's called me afterwards. Before he was born, I came.
And since your separation in February of 2024, has she given you any early notice so that you can attend doctor appointments? Judge, I think that's all. Mr. Baker's going to ask you a few questions, Mr. Westcott.
Mr. Baker, you may cross-examine.
A doctor's appointment schedule. What day did you ask that?
I haven't, sir.
You haven't asked, but you're up here saying that she's not giving you A, B, C, and D, correct?
Yes.
Kind of manipulating or misrepresenting what was going on. She never refused to give you any information, did she? And you never asked for it. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Dane, ask one question, let him answer, then ask the next.
Didn't ask for medical appointment information from Ms. Tittle.
Yes, sir.
And she never refused you any information, did she?
Sure.
All right. When were you in drug court?
2022. That's all I really know, sir. It's 16 months. So I may have entered in 2021. I may have. No, it's 18 months long. It's a year and a half. But I graduated in 2022.
What was your drug insurance?
I mean, it really didn't matter, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I could name a couple if you want me to.
What's the last time you used?
The day I messed up, which has been over 2 years now.
Right now, that DUI you had, do you remember when that?
That was what I'm referring to. I don't remember the date.
Okay. All right, but since then, I've been using.
Bakers, turn that microphone towards you.
But,
No,
but
sir.
since then, you haven't been using.
No, sir.
Correct? Okay. And you're okay if the judge asks you to take drug tests?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, but there's no dispute that Miss Tittle's a good mom.
Great mom.
And Zane loves his mom
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
and
sir.
loves his dad.
Yes, sir.
And now you stated that you're staying with your sister. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, now correct me if I'm wrong. You're staying in the garage that's been, I guess, had a room built in it.
Yeah, we built a room and a bathroom.
Okay, but there's really not any additional room in your sister's house. Their bedrooms are full with their kids and them. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, my sister offered me, but I didn't want to do this. But if my nephews were in one of their bunk beds, they would free up a room. But I was only going to do it if the courts needed to be inside of the house.
Okay, so you and Shane would have to share that room. Is that right? Basement and the garage. Or Zane.
Zane.
What did I say?
Yeah, I was like, that's my brother-in-law's name. So I was
But y'all are sharing that room in the garage?
Yeah, and me and my brother-in-law talked about building a room next to it, but I just thought he was too young to build it yet.
Right. All right, now, has she ever refused you your 4 hours?
Not my 4 hours, but she has refused more.
Okay. Now, you said when you injured your back from June to August, did you work any at all?
No, sir.
Were you getting disability or?
I got, what is it called? So I didn't get hurt at work. So there's a thing they pay you, but if you don't like hop on it the day you get it. So like the first 6 weeks you get like, I didn't get anything.
Right.
2 weeks they got to make sure you're even injured. And it takes something to get whatever going. But they sent me like enough to like survive barely, you know. And then by the time they were even thinking about giving me another one, I was getting to work to be back at work.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, but there's no dispute that the family got visitation for the holidays, was Zane, correct?
Yeah, she was really good about the holidays.
Okay. Your mom and dad, his grandparents, do they get to talk to Zane pretty regularly?
No, it's a weird situation. So Kaylin's mom has told my parents they can see her whenever, but it's whenever it's under my parents go there, not like if like my parents pick them up or anything.
Okay. But they've never refused?
No, sir. No one's ever refused that.
Okay. Judge, I think that's all I've got for this witness.
Redirect, Ms. Baker. I'm sorry, Ms. Duke.
I think we need a break on that.
No, that's right. You two, you and Mr. Baker act like an old married couple anyway, sometimes in court. How old are you? Mr. Westcott, how old are you?
31, sir.
31. All right, how old is Miss Tittle?
20.
But your testimony is that you two were together and she was aware of your problems before you and she began having a more serious relationship and that led to the birth of this child. All right. Thank you. You may step down. Ms. Duke, you may call your next witness.
If you would, please state your name for the record.
Ashley Stanley.
And Ms. Stanley, what is your relationship to Mr. Westcott?
He's my brother.
Okay.
Well, he's my stepbrother, but
Okay.
he's my brother.
Have a good relationship with him?
Really good relationship.
Okay. Have you seen him interact with nephews and nieces?
Yes.
Okay, tell the court a
Excuse
little
me.
bit about that.
Sure. I have a 7-year-old son. We have several nieces and nephews in our family, and they all adore Chase. He's very intentional with his time. Anytime he's around the family, he's the first one to get in the floor, play with the kids.
Kids love him.
They love him. Yeah.
In your personal opinion, what do you think about his ability to care for children?
There are some things that require expert testimony. There are other things that a layperson can testify regarding. I think what you are asking her is a form of an opinion without laying a foundation as to what type of an opinion it is. So I'm going to sustain the objection, allow you to restate your question.
Do you have any concerns for Mr. Westcott's ability to care for your nieces or nephews?
No.
Do you have any concerns about his ability to care for his child, Zane?
No.
And have you observed him caring for children?
Absolutely. He, like I said, he's the first one to jump in the floor, play around. He'd change a diaper. He's very, very helpful.
Would you allow him to babysit your children?
Yes.
What do they call him? What do the kids call him?
Uncle Chase.
And you've seen him probably at his worst and probably at his best.
Yeah.
Have you had any concerns for him over the last 2 years?
No. Can I elaborate a little
Absolutely.
bit? I don't know if it's fair to say, but I used to work as a substance abuse nurse for 7 years, so I'm very aware of Chase's history and behavior patterns, and I've had no concerns. That's helpful to know.
Has he maintained steady employment?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, and has he maintained the home where he's living?
Yes.
Restate your question.
Have you been to the home where he's staying?
Yes.
Okay. Is it appropriate for a child?
Yes. He lives with my sister.
Okay. Would you allow your children to stay the night where he's living?
They do. He does. I just have one. Sorry.
Okay.
He does.
Sorry.
Yes. Mhm.
In the course and scope of your employment, did you have the occasion to recognize when somebody was abusing drugs?
Absolutely. I was a detox nurse for, like I said, over 7 years.
Why does it have to be an expert to be able to recognize if someone's using drugs? And if we were talking about proof of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, I would agree with you. But this is whether or not this witness has experienced in her training or in her work history sufficient to allow her to recognize when somebody is demonstrating the signs of any sort of substance abuse. And basically what she's testified to, in my opinion, would give her the basis for being able to give that type of testimony. So I'm overruling your objection.
Have you seen any of those characteristics out of Mr. Westcott in the last 2 years? Is there anything else you'd like to tell the court?
I think that if I may, I would love to see my brother be given the opportunity to be the wonderful father that I think he can be.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Baker, you may cross-examine.
Period of time have you observed Mr. Westcott care for children? Is this like for a few hours at a time, or
Yes, sir, during family gatherings.
but nothing like overnight, and to see how he does baths and breakfast, laundry, and all that stuff for the children?
No, sir, he doesn't live with me.
He doesn't live with you,
No.
so your observation is limited to just when family get-together time is.
As it would be for any family member, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you see a lot of irregular conduct at your family get-togethers?
No. My
Right.
family is a very close-knit, normal family, I would say.
So everybody's on pretty good behavior when get-togethers?
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Ms. Duke, you may call your next witness.
If you would, please state your name for the record.
Mary Stanley Stoltz. Sorry.
Go ahead. And what is your relationship to Mr. Chase Westcott?
I'm his aunt.
Can you briefly, your testimony will be brief, can you tell me your observations of the mother, maternal grandmother, and maternal great-grandmother in this matter?
I can't.
Tell me about what
I
observation.
would sustain the objection. I think it's going to have to be limited to each of those individuals.
Are you familiar with an incident that happened at the ball field?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell the court the entire story about the ball field?
From my perspective, this is okay. Yeah, this is what I saw. We were at the ball field. My nephew, great nephew, was playing. We were
Tell the court about when this happened.
gosh, well, it was during the ball season, like the spring little league season. We were sitting with Kaylin, Lynn, Jody. I don't remember the grandmother being there.
Okay.
And we were all, enjoying the kids, being around each other, having a good time. I grew up with her family. I loved them. And the only one that wasn't there yet was my sister-in-law, Nancy, Chase's mother. But as she was coming, I said, "There's Nancy. Oh, there's Nancy."
Did you say that loud enough for the mother of the minor child to hear you say it?
I just said it out loud, but I
Okay.
know what happened afterwards was Chase had Zane, and Kaylin took Zane. And it was the first moment that I can say I became aware of animosity, if you want to call it that, between Kaylin and my sister-in-law. She took Zane, and her and Chase had a few words. Basically, she took Zane and walked away with him. So when Nancy came up, she didn't get to see Zane. It bothered me. I was hurt. I didn't know why Nancy coming seemed to trigger that reaction.
And Nancy is Mr. Westcott's mother?
Mother,
Okay.
yes, yeah. And so it stood out to me because it seemed a deliberate action, and I didn't understand why. Now, I won't say I didn't understand to all degree, because previous holidays, I had seen her tell Nancy no to holding Zane. She told me no to holding Zane at Nancy's house, but I didn't know it had gotten to that degree. Like it was very hostile. She got him out of there, and it made me sad because she's a good lady.
Despite Mr. Westcott being upset, did he handle the situation in your mind? Did he handle it well?
He did. She was demanding Zane. He said, "It's okay, stay," something to that effect. I cannot swear to every single word. She said, "No, give him to me," and she walked off with him.
Okay.
Chase didn't cause a scene. We've all tried to not fight.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with Mr. Westcott's character, is that correct?
Yes.
Is he a good guy?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Has he had his struggles in the past?
Absolutely. And he has really worked hard. And especially since this baby came into the picture. Like, I cannot be more proud of him, especially this past year, because it's been hard for him.
And has he maintained his calm with the mother in the last year?
I mean, from what I have seen, yes.
Okay.
I've never seen, them, especially, she's been at our family functions, so I don't think, she would come over and like raise Cain or anything. So, I mean, yeah.
Have you heard him say ugly things about her or do anything ugly where she's...
No, I've heard he has relayed things to us that has happened when he's going for visitation, that he's just kind of had to take so that he could spend time with this kid. But that's just what he's told us. I wasn't there.
And despite being frustrated, has he handled that well?
Yes.
Are you proud of him for it?
I am, very much. I have feared him breaking over this past year. It's a lot of stress to be in a position where you are having to go somewhere where people don't want you to be to see your kid, and that's your only time to see him. He could have done a lot in this past year to give in to the temptation of the stress, with everything that he struggles against, and he hasn't. And that is what I pray for every day, that he continues to hold strong for Zane, for himself first, and for Zane.
From your observations of him when you've been around he and the minor child, is he attentive?
Yes.
He meet the child's needs?
As far as I've seen, yes, ma'am.
Is he stable currently?
I believe so.
And he is gainfully employed, is that correct?
And going to school, trying to better himself and his situation.
Do you have any concerns? Let's say it was your 1.5-year-old. Do you have any concerns about this child being around him?
Do not, and I think he needs it. I think Zane needs it too.
Judge, that's all my questions.
Baker, do you have questions?
About 4 months old. Is that correct?
No, well, let's see, August to, what was that, like April? So 8, 9 months old. He was older than 4 months old, yeah.
All right, we'll just take about a 15-minute recess. That'll be our afternoon recess.
May be seated.
All right. Mr. Baker, I think you were about to cross-examine before you were interrupted by Ms. Duke.
I think I got one question in.
Okay.
All right, now at the ballpark, I think is where we left off.
Mhm.
Now, did you see what transpired after Ms. Tittle took Zane?
No, she walked off with him, and we were still watching the ball game.
Okay. Were you aware about what the situation was about?
Of why she got him away when my sister-in-law came up? No, no, sir.
Okay.
It struck me as odd. Yeah.
No further questions.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You can have a seat in the audience if you'd like, or you may leave. Or your next witness. All right, the petitioner has rested his case. Mr. Baker, do you wish to throw in any proof? Still, if you'll come forward, please. And you raise your right hand, face the clerk, and be placed under oath.
Ms. Keller, if you would state your name for the record.
Kaylin Tittle.
Tittle. We're talking about the custody of Zane today. And I'm going to start right where we left off about that situation at the ballpark. What was that situation at the ballpark about?
I really don't know. That time of my life was super stressful. I remember most of the time I would have to quit crying to go places. I was taking care of the whole house by myself and a baby, and also working 12 hours a day most days to pay the bills at our house. So when we were around people, it was just, I wanted Zane, like I wanted to hold my baby because I missed him. So, and I think at that time I was kind of just stressed out about everything, to be honest with you.
And had Mr. Westcott moved out at that point? Well, that's leading. I just asked, that's a yes or no.
We
Well, it is
had-
leading. I mean, you made a statement rather than, and then at the end kind of made a question out of it, but it is leading, so sustain. We can do this. I think what's happened is you objected on some things that were kind of not necessary to Ms. Duke, but Ms. Duke intends to pay you back by objecting to questions that could otherwise be ignored.
Okay.
So let's go through it. We've got the rest of the afternoon.
Sounds good. What was the living arrangements for you and Mr. Westcott at that time?
We were actually not living together at the time, and I was talking about before at family gatherings. That's where my brain went just then.
I'm going to ask you some basic questions that the judge is going to need to answer. Since Zane was born, who did the majority of the parenting?
Me.
And who did the cooking and cleaning?
Me.
All right. Who changed the diapers for Zane?
Me.
All right. And I don't think there's any dispute that Zane loves both parents. Is there any dispute on that?
No, sir.
Okay. And now, Mr. Westcott had testified about you being strong-willed. Now, tell me about the situation
Independent, I think is what he said.
independent. Tell me about the situation with the child support payments.
So when we were together, I did most of the paying for groceries. I bought groceries. I bought the food, the electric and water bill. I paid my half of the rent. I paid all of my bills. Sometimes I even helped with his bills and his half of the rent because he couldn't come up with the money. And so I think when it came to child support, it was like, now I have the money. Let me throw it in your face. And it kind of made me sick a little bit that he could help then, but he wasn't able to help when we were together.
Well, how much since he moved out? How much did he pay you in child support? You know?
He's paid around $360 plus the 2 things of diapers, 2 things of formula, maybe 2 things of wipes that he's brought, and a couple things of snacks and a few outfits.
Okay. All right. And over what course of time has it been since he moved out?
A year.
When's the last
Almost.
time he helped you with anything?
He brought, I think it was $75 last week, and he handed that to my mom because I was at work.
Okay. All right. So who's the one who historically has been caring and providing the necessities for the child?
Me.
Okay. All right. And since he moved out, what assistance has he give you in parenting the child?
Well, he comes over his 4 hours a week and he plays with Zane, and he'll get him to sleep for around 2 hours while he's there. And some of the other time that he's there, his sparing 2 hours to an hour and a half that he stays when Zane is not sleeping, he is playing with him. And most of the time, he does not change his diaper while he's there. He doesn't even ask where the diapers are to change his diapers. He just plays and naps, and sometimes he'll feed him.
And does he stay the whole period?
Not all the time, no, sir. And here lately, he's stayed one time for 4 hours in the past, like 3 months.
Okay. And what concerns do you have about his parenting abilities?
He puts Zane in danger by letting him play with things that babies should not play with. For example, he gave him a screwdriver with a bit on it that could have been taken off. Zane could have swallowed it and got choked, or he could have been running around with it and stabbed himself. Just careless things like that. He leaves it up on the counter and walks away, and it's a very tall counter with a stove next, like on the countertop. Just things like that. Just not thinking.
When did the situation with the screwdriver take place?
A couple months ago, maybe.
Did you observe that happen?
No, my grandma told me, and my mom.
Sustained.
Well, we'll get to your grandma later. Any other things that gives you concern with his parenting abilities?
Just not thinking. When he gets mad, he acts out. If you go against what he thinks is correct.
Who is he? Zane or
Chase.
Okay.
Chase, Mr. Westcott. He will act out if you go against what he says is true. There were several times when we lived together that he would scare me when we would do something like argue, and one time he kicked the door in. That was really scary. Then he would speed off in his car and he'd say, "I'm leaving," and he would leave. And then he would come back, and it was all my fault, of course, that he acted that way. One time he left my house angry after seeing Zane, and he wrecked his car. He wrecked it, and it was out of anger. It wasn't raining. It wasn't anything. It was either out of anger or it was because he was on his phone or something crazy like that. But it was wrecked on both sides.
Sustained.
But he wrecked the vehicle. How long ago was that?
I'm not sure how long ago it was. Probably Or I don't know. I can't tell you when it was. It wasn't too far in the past.
Was it before or after June?
After.
All right, and what is your living situation? Where are you living at?
I live with my mom and dad.
All right, and what's the sleeping arrangements? What's going on there?
I have a bed in my room, and then Zane has a crib that stays in the corner of my room so that I can hear him when he cries because it's a big house.
And what's your work schedule?
I make my own schedule. So I'm off whenever I need to be off. And when I'm
How much did you make last year? First of all, tell the judge what you do.
I do hair.
Is it here in town?
Yes, sir. It's in White Bluff.
And how much did you gross last year?
40,000. That's before my deductions and write-offs.
You know how much the expense out of is going to come out of that yet? Has the numbers been done?
They haven't been done yet, no, sir.
Well, normally, historically, how much do you net?
Normally around 30.
30,000.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay the booth rental and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Sustained.
Why is that number 30,000?
Because I have to buy products, I have to pay booth rent, I have to buy supplies for the salon, gas to and from the supply store, and we go there quite often. Travel for weddings, so that's gas and products.
And what would you suggest to the board is in the best interest of Zane for parenting?
I would feel comfortable. I think it would be better for Zane to be with Chase supervised somewhere for a few hours a week. And just to see, so others can see how he is as a parent, and see how he doesn't think like that.
Has he ever spent the night with Zane by himself?
No, sir.
Well, who would you ask to be there? You got somebody?
Probably his sister Ashley.
Ashley's got children.
Yes. He's 7.
How long do you think would be good to acclimate on that schedule?
Well, he has 4 hours now, so, and he doesn't stay the full time, so maybe start out with 4 hours.
And then for how long doing that?
Like a year until he can start talking, I guess.
You should be talking a little bit now.
He talks a little bit.
All right. Any other concerns for Mr. Westcott's parenting?
Not at the moment.
Any concerns with his substance abuse?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What would your concerns be with that?
Sometimes over the past couple months, when he comes over, sometimes he'll be super hyper and sometimes he'll be really down, which is a little concerning. And whether it's a illegal drug, it still concerns me that he's using something to change his mood.
Specifically, give me some examples of what you observe. You got to tell the judge. You got to give him a picture of what's happening.
Sometimes he's just hyped up and sometimes he's way down. Yeah.
Any other concerns you want to tell the judge?
Not at the moment.
Stu's going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Understand that I'm not beating you up when I say this, but you're so concerned about his behaviors that he was your very first call when your dad had his heart attack, and you asked him to come to the hospital and be with you, didn't you?
I did not ask him. He offered to come help with Zane because it was a very stressful situation. So I did not ask. But when they called the code blue on my dad and said that he was basically going to die, I figured, yeah, it probably would be nice to have somebody there to help with Zane at that moment.
But you
So,
called him. He was your first call.
I did call
Okay.
Chase because I wanted him to know what was going on.
And you felt okay with the fact that he could care for the child.
Yes, while everybody is there with us.
You don't like not being in control of things. Is that kind of what it's getting down to?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Because you were well aware before you conceived this child with him that he was in drug court.
Yes.
Okay.
Did he not testify that
He did.
being in drug court, he had to clarify that or had to have that, and that Doug Beecham had to meet with her and so forth before they continued on? Yeah, but that's the point. You said you were objecting to facts not in evidence. I'm just simply pointing out that what I heard, there was testimony to that. Overrule the objection.
You had to meet with Doug Beecham, didn't you?
I did.
Okay. And so you knew about his history.
I did. Yes, ma'am.
And you chose to have a sexual relationship with him subsequent to that. And you conceived your minor child.
Yes, after I was told that I was not supposed to get pregnant by my doctor.
I'm not beating you up about that. I mean,
yeah, I was not supposed to be able to have children.
Okay. And you had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And you were engaged to him.
Yes.
And the two of you broke up, and you told him, I'm going to let you see this child.
Mm-hmm.
You told him that.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And fast forward to you moving in with your mother, you decided that he could only have supervised visitation.
After like weeks and months of him coming over whenever, yes, it made it easier to have a schedule because I couldn't work with my work schedule and work with my parents' schedule all the time to when he just would call and say, can I come over today? We couldn't just drop everything to be there with him.
Okay, well,
so we did make a schedule.
Let's talk about this. Let's say the role were reversed.
Mm-hmm.
And your child was 1 year and almost 5 months old, and the most you'd ever gotten to see your child was for 4 hours supervised. How would that make you feel? It is real.
Overruled.
How would that make you feel?
Well, it would probably make me not feel good, but I would probably try to do more than Chase does. I would probably actually give money even when it wasn't wanted. I would probably take care of the child more than just at family events. Or when I was there, I would change the diaper. I would feed the baby. I would do other things other than get the baby to sleep and play with him for an hour and a half.
Okay. So you've got him coming to your home for a 4-hour period of time when you, your grandmother, and your mother nitpick him about everything he's doing at visitation. Is that fair?
Somebody's got to nitpick him because his family sure doesn't. They just kind of let him do whatever he wants to do.
When has he been given the opportunity to do anything with this child in front of his family?
When he's there during his parenting time, he should be parenting. We shouldn't have to hover over him because he doesn't know what he's doing. We shouldn't have to tell him, oh, don't let Zane play with the knife up on the cabinet. Don't leave him on the cabinet, Chase. He can't do that. Oh, you've got to change his diaper. You've got to cut his food up to feed him. You shouldn't have to babysit the parent.
You understand, ma'am, that you're under oath and you're testifying right now. Do you understand that?
Yes, and all of that is true.
Okay, and you understand that if you lie during court, that it is criminal in nature.
Yes, and none of that is a lie.
And you're coming before this court when he asked you repeatedly in those text messages that you reviewed with your attorney. He asked you, why can't I have him? The only thing you ever said is he's more comfortable in my home. You never said you're an irresponsible father. You never said you're not providing for him. As a matter of fact, you blocked him on Venmo, didn't you?
I did, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you refused the $75 that we talked about last. Hold on. $75
No, ma'am.
that your mother received from
did.
him. He had asked you to take it from him before that. Yes or no?
Well, there's 9 different statements, but you're going to have to make it in the form of a question. Sustain the objection.
Hold on. The $75. Yes or no? Did he offer it to you before he gave it to your mother?
He offered it to me as I was walking in the door with Zane, and my other hand was full with groceries.
Okay, so he
they were
offered.
full. My hands were full, and I could not take it at the moment. I said, I cannot have it right now. He put it in his pocket and walked inside.
Okay.
And then
gave it to your mother.
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
correct?
That's exactly how that went down. I did not straight up say no.
But that's not an isolated incident. You don't take child support payments from him, do you?
Yes. He leaves them there.
Blocking on Venmo?
He should. That makes it so much easier on him to just Venmo me instead of going to the bank. He's doing everything the easiest that it can possibly be done for Chase, and he's done that the whole time we've been together.
Why would you not want it to be easy if he's going to send you money? Why would you not want that to be easy for him? That's
Overruled.
Why would you not want that to be? He's in school and working, and sending you a Venmo is a problem? Yes or no?
Why does it have to be like, why
I
can
don't
he not
answer
bring me
questions.
cash?
You answer questions.
Yes, it's a problem.
Okay. Why?
Because it's so much, because it takes one more thing off of Chase that he has to do. He works and goes to school, and that's all he does. He's 32 years old.
Okay.
He
He's
should be able to
stable.
do that without any problem.
Is he stable? Yes. I'm not answering questions. You are. Tell me how having a job for 2 years and being in school for 2 years is not stable. You're living with your parents, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How old are you?
I'm 26.
Okay. And he's just 5 years older than you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Similarly situated, is that correct?
Kind of.
He's bettered himself since you two separated. He's gotten
Mhm.
a better paying job. Is that right?
He had that job when we were together.
Yes. He's gotten a raise. Is that correct?
I don't know his money situation.
Okay. You heard that he's making $23 an hour. Was he making $23 an hour when you two were together?
I don't know. He lied so much. I didn't know the truth
Okay.
from the not truth.
So now we're around to the fact that he's a liar.
Absolutely.
Okay. He was kind to you in his testimony.
Hmm.
Oh, you don't think he was kind to you?
He was
during
kind
his
during his testimony, but this week when I needed some space and some time, he was not kind.
So
No,
when you
ma'am.
called him and he dropped everything to go to the hospital?
Not that. After that, when I had to
Oh,
cancel
okay.
his visitation with Zane, he got very ugly with me the second time because my dad was coming home from the hospital and we had to be there to help get him in. And he was ugly about that.
Because you canceled on him again, right?
Yeah,
Two
two
times.
times. Yeah, because my dad had a heart attack and Zane has been sick with the croup this week.
If you
So it's a lot.
If you hadn't seen your child in a period of 7 days and somebody kept putting you off, and the last time you saw your child was for less than 4 hours, would it not upset you for somebody to continue to put that off?
Well, he has 4 hours to stay. It didn't have to be less than 4 hours.
Okay, when was the
First
last
of all,
when was the last time you spent 7 days away from this child?
never.
Okay,
Second of
yeah.
all, I would hope that somebody would be understanding. I would hope that I would be understanding to the fact that it's a very stressful time.
Okay. And you scheduled him, you told him when he could come to your home. Is that correct?
This is one time in a year. One
You-
time.
You told him when he could come to your home. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
You set his schedule for
He
his
set
weekly
his schedule. I
visits.
asked him if he wanted 2 hours for 2 days or 4 hours for one day, and he said 4 hours for
And
one
you
day.
set the schedule for when it starts and when it finishes, correct? No, when it starts and when it finishes is not been answered.
Overrule the objection. Restate your question.
You told him when he could arrive and when he could stay till. Is that correct?
I did, but we
Okay.
have been doing when he gets home from work. So whatever time he gets home from work, we start the 4 hours, and then 4 hours after that he can leave. But normally he leaves before that.
Okay. So why can't we just let him have the child for a couple of days at a time so that he can actually spend time with the child? You don't have to look at your lawyer for an answer for that.
Not because it would be the child would be very unnerved being away from his mother that long and being with the father who he knows for 4 hours at a time.
Okay, but you've created that, correct?
No, ma'am.
Now, let's talk a little bit about when this was filed. When this is filed, you can agree that Mr. Westcott tried to get an agreed order of paternity since he had signed off on the acknowledgement of paternity, and you contested paternity. Is that correct?
Yes.
For what reason did you contest paternity?
Overruled.
Why did you contest paternity other than to keep him from having visitation with his child?
That was not it. I never wanted to keep him from having visitation.
Okay.
Clearly.
Then why? Oh, clearly?
Yes, because we let him come over 4 hours every week.
And by we, that's you and your mother and your grandmother.
Yes.
So are y'all a team?
No.
Can you agree your family sees him more than the biological father sees a child?
Yes, because they babysit him while I'm at work.
Okay. So why can he not babysit while you're at work?
Because he's at work also.
Okay. But if he's available, if he's off a day, why can't he babysit?
Because he's irresponsible as a parent.
You required that he take a paternity test, but in court today, you can't tell this court why you required him to take a paternity test. You knew he was the dad. Did you question paternity?
Yes, but kind of.
Okay. Then did you lie to him about never cheating on him?
Yes,
Have you been dishonest with him?
one time.
Oh, just one time.
Yeah, just one time.
Who could the other father have been? If she says that she cheated on him, I want to know who it is.
Paternity, and we had a DNA test. There's no fact now that identity of this person yet fact is going to be relevant.
No, the statute the old paternity statute made a provision that if a man contested paternity and was later found to be the paternity, that was a factor the court could consider in a custody arrangement. Of course, back then the laws were mostly suited to favor the mother in those situations anyway. So, in my opinion, it would seem to me that it is relevant on the issues of her attitude towards this man regarding his rights as a father, as to whether or not there was a valid reason why she would question his paternity if, in fact, they'd been in a relationship. The acknowledgement that he was the father was made during the relationship, and then suddenly after he files this petition, she questions his paternity. Now, the identity of the individual is not necessarily a question that I think is relevant, and I'm not wanting to necessarily have to answer it to embarrass her, but it becomes a question of when and where and so forth that this relationship would have occurred that she says occurred that could have questioned in her mind the paternity of this child. Let's leave the name out and let's question whether or not, if you want to question her, you can question her about those facts.
Judge, my only purpose in that question, I don't mind to strike it, was simply to get across to the court that she's not being forthcoming in court, so I'll strike it. I think the court can discern what they need to discern from that. What is your current address? And that is not the address where the two of you resided together, is that correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And that's in White Bluff, is that correct?
Yes.
Are you paying rent there?
No, ma'am, but I help out with the groceries and the bills.
Your portion of those things?
No, a majority of the portion of them.
Okay. But you're not required to, is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
So when you testified earlier that you were paying all of the bills in the home, that wasn't exactly accurate because
That was the bills in mine and Chase's home.
okay. Now, you and Chase lived together until February of 2024, correct?
Yes.
And during that time, there were times when you would run an errand and he would take care of the child. Was that correct?
I would maybe 2 hour, 3 hours max when I would go to work.
And so when the two of you were together, 2 to 3 hours while you were at work wasn't a big deal. But now that the two of you are separated, you can't manage to allow him to have this child for 2 to 3 hours. And is that correct?
I had to work and I had to have somebody to watch him on the weekends.
And he was good enough
He
then.
he would badger me on Friday night because I would want my grandma to watch him, and he would badger me until I finally just gave up.
Because
Like
he
until
wanted-
1 a.m., he would be up yelling at me.
Because he wanted to be a dad. Is that correct?
No, because he wanted to be controlling.
You're before this court having offered him 4 hours of supervised visitation since the two of you separated a week, and you're telling me he's the controlling one? I mean, I'm just trying to sort this out. I don't get it.
Well, whether you get it or not is not the issue. Sustain the objection to this argument.
Have you sought any mental health treatment in the last year?
No.
Okay. When you were crying all the time after the baby was born and said that what happened at the ball field, you were having a hard time not crying all the time. Did you seek help at that time?
No, because I was made to believe that it was postpartum.
Okay. And that's fine.
And I'm pretty sure that it was probably a little bit of postpartum and some issues at home, but that
okay,
was
so
it.
now you're saying he abused you?
mental.
In all of those text messages, when he asks you, why won't you let me have the minor child? Why did you list all these terrible things you're saying about him?
I didn't feel the need to. I was a little scared at the time to say all those things.
But this has been the history of your text messages. These text messages in June are not the only text messages that the two of you have. It's been the same answer for him in every text message where he's asked you. Is that correct?
Yes, around about the same answer.
Okay. Judge, if I may have one moment.
Baker?
Text didn't ask you to list each and every instance of why, did it?
No, sir.
Did the
Sustain.
what did that question in those text ask?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
All right.
Asking for him to give me money.
Did you give a complete and exhaustive answer to those questions?
Every single time.
No. When she asked that question that she was asking you about. When you said that one time you answered one thing and you're not being truthful. Do you recall that when Miss Duke was asking you all that?
Yes.
All right. Did you give an inclusive of every answer you could think of on the books? Okay.
I'm so confused.
You're not the only one that's confused. So.
That's all my questions.
Okay.
Miss Duke asked you these questions, and I'm going to ask them to you. Do you understand you and he had this relationship, and you understand that he is the biological father of this child? You understand that?
Yes, sir.
And you understand that under the law says that he has a right to see the child. It's just dependent on what schedule that but that it is required that I set a schedule for him to have contact with this child.
Yes, sir.
And are you aware, maybe your lawyers told you, that our state legislature has moved towards an equal residential schedule, meaning that there's a presumption that an equal residential schedule ought to be applied unless the court finds that there's valid reasons why, or that it's inappropriate in a particular case. Now, that rarely ever gets applied in these cases because there's always issues between the parties. But you and he had this relationship after you knew he'd been in drug court, correct?
Yes, sir.
You also had this relationship after you knew or saw whatever those issues were that he had, right?
Yes, sir.
And if he takes and passes a drug screen, is there any reason other than what you've talked about? Parents have different ways of parenting their children, and I certainly don't diminish and don't disregard putting a child of that age in a dangerous situation. But the two of you chose to have the child together, and as a result, he's going to be able to see this child. It's just a question of how we progress in that situation. So Ms. Duke asked you about how you would feel if you only got 4 hours a week, and you wouldn't like that, I know.
Right.
It would be traumatizing to you, wouldn't it?
Yes,
But that's
sir.
because you've had this child with you every day, every single day. And there's a special bond between a mother and a child. But there can be a special bond between a father and a child as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
And so what you understand what my job is to try to ensure and to not protect, but to encourage that bond between him and his son.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to do that, I'm going to put an order down since you two have had an opportunity to try to resolve this by agreement. You haven't been able to. So I'm going to put an order down. But listening to you, I understand your objections. And for example, I wrote down a couple of things. One of them was you didn't want to do the Venmo because it made it easy on him. And that all he has to do is go to work and so forth. And that's resentful on your part because you've had to take care of this child, but you've had your parents, your mom, your grandmother. You've had to take care of this child by yourself, more or less. But wouldn't it be good to have him have to shoulder some of that responsibility and to do the things that a parent should do?
If I could trust him to be able to do those things, but my trust is very little in him.
I understand. That's why it falls to me to have to make those decisions.
Sir.
So when this decision gets made, you can blame me and not him. What I want you to understand is whatever's happened between you and him is in the past. Where we're headed from this point forward is what I think is the appropriate thing to do, because the two of you can you can always agree on something other than what I do, but I'm going to put an order down and that order is going to have to be followed. It probably is not going to be what you like. It's probably not going to be what he likes, but it's going to be something that I think is going to be fair to both parties and it's going to be in the best interest of your child. But what I want you to understand is while you have resentment towards him because you think you've shouldered all of the responsibility, he's not even changed in diapers and hasn't done this or that, and you don't want his money thrown in your face because he hasn't contributed in the past, you're going to have to set that aside. And you're going to have to let him, he's going to have to pay child support. He's going to owe you child support retroactively to the birth of this child because that's what the law in the state of Tennessee said. He's not walking away from any of that. So he's going to end up having to pay you for both current and retroactive support. But by the same token, it's a two-way street. His right to see his child by law is not dependent on whether or not he's paying child support. Same thing goes. His obligation to pay child support is not dependent on whether he's seeing the child like he should. And the reason for that is because if one parent denies the other one the obligation, or rather the opportunity to see the child, that person will be in violation of the law and a court order. If one parent fails to pay child support, he will be in violation of it, or she would be in violation of the court order. What that means is both of them would be in violation, and we see that sometimes. The mother refuses to give visitation because the dad's not paying child support. All that means is they're both in contempt of the court's orders, and they both go to jail. You understand that? I want you to parent your son. I want him to parent your son. You're going to have to understand that the trust is going to have to come from, some of the small steps that might have to be taken to build that trust. But we got to start somewhere, and having 4 hours visitation in your home with you and your mom and your grandmother overlooking him in his visitation is not a way to build trust. It's going to have to be done in a different scenario. So that falls to me to have to do it. So I just wanted to talk to you about that because of the simple fact that it clearly is it is obvious to me that you have some resentment towards him because you feel like you've had all of the responsibility and he's had none. And that's understandable. But we're going to fix that problem from this point forward. He's going to have some responsibilities of his own. All right, step down. Mr. Baker, you may call your next witness.
Judge, I will ask while she's getting on the witness stand. You said back to the date of birth on retro, but I think, would it not be back?
Probably a date of separation.
Yeah, February. I was just making sure.
You'll step up, please, ma'am. Raise your right hand and be placed on the oath.
Ms. Faye, if you would state your name for the record, please.
Sandra Faye Harris.
Ms. Harris, how do you know Ms. Tittle?
It's my granddaughter.
All right. And have you had an opportunity to observe Mr. Westcott and Zane at your home?
Yes, sir.
You have a couple, you relayed to me a couple of things. Can you relay what concerns you may have with Mr. Westcott's parenting?
Well, I'm there every time. He's there every Monday. And every time we have to stop him on something, he's put Zane in danger. For instance, there's a island, and there was a knife with a cake and stuff, and he flops him up there, and first thing baby's going to do is grab the knife. And me and Lynn both, we just dove. And before we get the knife, he set him down there again. And another time, he set him on the counter, and he's 13 months old, around 13 months old, and he just walks off, he's going to go to the trash can, and I holler, Chase, you can't do that. He's a baby. So he runs back over real quick. And then once he was feeding him, kept feeding him, had a mouthful, gave him something to drink. Zane got really bad. He runs to the door, and me and Lynn runs over there to get Zane. And then, not long ago, he just kept throwing him up in there.
Hold up. Let's go back. That's kind of important. You said that Zane was.
Yes.
And what did Mr. Westcott do?
He ran to the back door like he panicked. He absolutely panicked.
Okay.
And Lynn and I, we got Zane, and we got him unchecked.
Okay. Do you remember when that? How old was Zane when that happened?
I'd say between 13, 14 months old.
Okay. He's about 17 now.
He's 16 months old. Little, yeah.
All right. And there was another situation. You said something about he was throwing him up in the
Yes.
air. Didn't mean to cut you off.
And he was playing with him, throwing him up in the air and everything. And Zane's little eyes, you can see his little eyes like wobbling. I said, Chase, you can't do that. He said, I do it with my nephews. They love it. Well, Zane was in between a cry and a laugh.
Right.
And I told Chase 3 times, Chase, stop. Chase, stop. And finally I said, Chase, stop it. And he finally stopped. And I told him, I said, Chase, I said, his little brain is still forming in there and stuff, and it flops around. I said, you cannot do a baby like that. And he said, well, I play with my nephews like that, and they love it.
But how old was Zane when that happened?
That was about a month and a half ago, probably.
Month and a half, and he's throwing him up there?
Yeah, you know how you do an older kid play with him, but Zane's a baby still.
Did he appear to have any? Mr. Westcott appear to have any back problems doing that?
No, he plays very well with Zane and toting him around and get down with he's got a bike and he'll go all around the kitchen with his bike and just run him around the kitchen. And no, he has shown no symptoms of back trouble. And now one day when his mom was there, he was pitiful with his back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lately, you seem to be okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There was another situation about a screwdriver or something.
Yeah,
I'm going to object to the leading judge. If he wants to say, is there anything else? I don't think he gets to lead her down a rosy path.
Didn't pre-plan an answer. Foundational materials acceptable.
Oh, he sure did.
So are you two going to finish your argument among yourselves, or do you want me to rule on the objection?
Rule on the objection, Judge.
All right, sustain the objection.
All right. Any other concerns with Mr. Westcott's parent?
Yeah, I think I'm there every Monday because Lynn had Kaylin's mother, the baby's grandmother, is there. And Chase, you have to keep an eye on him because he puts him in danger at least once, sometimes twice. I don't think it's purposely. I think it's just he doesn't think about the danger that he puts him in. And yeah, I mean, there's several things that he has done that just concerns me, and so I'm there, and we're there for Zane's protection too. Yeah.
Thank you. And I don't know, obviously you've got children. You think a parenting class may help with this situation?
I would
Jack,
hope
I'm just
so.
asking.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Which I would.
And you know, there's several things he's done like that it concerns me highly for Zane's safety.
Okay.
Very
Anything
highly.
else you'd like to tell the judge relevant to what you were saying?
Well, I mean, he goes to his car several times during the visit. That's every Monday he does that, and don't know what he's doing, but he stays on his phone most of the time, either texting. He's got to where he talks some. When he's playing with Zane, he's either texting or he's something other, but it's not, his attention's not on Zane all the time. It's more his phone than anything.
Ms. Dukes is going to ask you some questions.
What has he done right? What has Mr. Westcott done right in your mind?
Well, you know what? I can't answer that question because I don't know what he's done right because
You're not willing to say what he's done right, are you?
I am willing to do right.
She said, I don't know.
She did say, I don't know, but
Yeah, I
is there
did.
anything further that she would ask? Just make sure you pause long enough for her to finish your answer.
Can I
What
finish?
has he done right?
Well, nothing that I've seen he's done right because all I know that he has done is he has come over on Mondays, but he always is trying to get out of child support. He wants to get out of child support. The other day I asked him, I said, what did you bring Zane this time? And he said, well, I was going to give some money to Kaylin, but Kaylin told me her hands was full.
Judge,
What?
well,
not
you
finished?
can say it.
And Kaylin said my hands was full and I couldn't take it. So I told Chase, because it had been 5 weeks since he had done anything. And I said, Chase, you can give it to Lynn to make sure her and Zane gets it. And it took him about 5 minutes to get out of his pocket.
Okay.
And
You know that
I know what?
Kaylin Miss Tittle has blocked him on the payment app. Did you know that?
Do you know why?
Okay. No, but did you know?
Yes,
I
I
don't
did.
have to answer questions.
Yes,
You answer the questions.
Yes, I did.
Okay. What sense does that make to you if you're saying he's not responsible for child support, but she's blocked him on an app where that he can just Venmo her money?
Why can't he just give it to her?
Why can't he just Venmo it?
Well,
what sense does it make to you for Ms. Tittle to complain about child support, but block him from an easy mechanism for him to pay her?
there's more than one route to pay child support.
Okay, but what sense does it make for her to complain about it if she blocks him?
Because he torments her on every app that he can get. He torments her.
How does he torment her?
He's always threatening to take Zane away from her. He's always threatening her.
Where's the proof of that today? Do you have one text message, anything that
I've heard him.
Okay.
I've heard him on speaker.
Can you tell me today, sitting here, what business of it did it have to do with you, or did it have to do with Miss Tittle's mother, for the two of you to be present at visitation when he doesn't have anyone present in the home that Miss Tittle and her mother live in? What business is it of yours to be there?
Well, Lynn lives there.
Okay, but what
And
business is it
I'm
of yours to be there?
I was asked to come because every time he came in, Kaylin was there, she was crying. He would just torment her. She was crying. So he was finally told, her dad told her, said, now on, you're not going to be here because he's tormenting you.
Then why would y'all not let him take the child to his mother's house? You know his mother, right?
I
Yes
do
or
know
no?
Nancy.
Okay, and she's a responsible person.
Okay.
Okay, yes or no? She's a responsible person.
I can't answer that. I don't know her that
Okay.
well.
Then why would you guys not allow him to have visitation away from the three of you who henpeck him?
That's not true. That's not true.
Well, you couldn't. Well, I think it's true. What else is it?
Restate your question.
The three of you can't find a dang thing that he's done right in a year. Can
Is that
you?
a question? Okay.
Yes or no?
Are you asking for all three of us or just me?
Well, I know Miss Tittle didn't have anything kind to say. Do you have anything kind to say?
I don't. I can't see nothing positive he's done. No, I
Okay.
can't. No.
Then tell you. You know his family members. Everybody
do.
that's sitting here,
And
don't you?
they're a good family.
Okay. Why could he? If he's not a perfect enough person to have visitation on his own, but you're good enough to supervise, her mom's good enough to supervise, she's good enough to supervise, why is Ashley not good enough to supervise his visits over the last year?
It was never asked.
Is that what Miss Tittles told you?
No, that's what I think. I don't know. No.
So you don't know whether it's been asked, because there's text messages up here where he asked for the child on his own.
Oh, yes, I do know that he has
Okay.
asked to see.
Then why is it not good enough for his family? If you're good enough and her family's good enough to supervise his visits, why is his family not good enough?
Nobody ever said they wasn't good enough.
Well, nobody's ever really let his family have the child by themselves, have they?
No.
Okay. And you said that the only time, you and her mother and Miss Tittle said that the only time that they could see the child was in the mother's home. Is that correct?
What was said when Nancy and Jamie came over they called for a meeting, my mouth was dry. They was told, and Kaylin told them also, anytime they wanted to see him, they was allowed to see him.
Over at her home.
That was never said that. And
Judge, that's all.
Anything further, Mr. Baker? Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You may have a seat in the courtroom, or you may leave if you'd like. Mr. Baker, you may call your next witness. The rest of their proof. Do you have any rebuttal proof?
Nothing.
You wish to be heard in argument, I'll hear you.
I'll wait.
All right, we're going to take a short recess for me to think through this, and I'll come back and give you my opinions.
Thank you, Judge.
All rise. Court's now back in session. You may be seated.
Probably the most difficult part of this job that I have is in arriving at decisions that impact families and children. Sometimes there is no good solution to the problems that persist or that present themselves. Other times it's trying to come up with an agreement or a plan that benefits both parties and the minor children. But as I've said over and over again, my responsibility is to promote and encourage a relationship with both parents and in keeping with the best interests of the minor child. So, as a result, I'm going to make a finding that the parties have the paternity is established. And the fact of the matter is there's no question that he is the biological father, and both sides acknowledge that. So paternity is established. Then I move to the question of the adoption of a parenting plan. That requires me to at least consider the factors about who should be designated as the primary residential parent, even though it may be on a temporary basis. Those factors that I'm required to consider are set forth in Tennessee Code Annotated 366106, and they include the following: the strength, nature, and stability of the child's relationship with each parent, including whether one parent has performed the majority of parenting responsibilities relating to the daily needs of the child. In this case, the proof is clearly established that Ms. Tittle has been the primary caregiver for the child, rightly or wrongly, or whether that is fair or unfair, but that is the fact. Mr. Westcott has had limited time with the child, at least since their separation, and therefore that factor clearly favors the mother. Each parent or caregiver's past potential for future performance of parenting responsibilities, including the willingness and ability of each parent and caregiver to facilitate and encourage a close and continuing parent-child relationship between the child and both of the child's parents, consistent with the best interest of the child. This is a problem in this case because too often we see in these cases where a mother who has a child, especially children born out of wedlock, but it also affects children who are born during a marriage. And because of the biological nature of the situation, the mother who carries the child for 9 months and then gives birth to the child has a special bond with the child and believes that that gives her a superior right to have custody of the child. In fact, there's a statute in the state of Tennessee that says a child born out of wedlock is presumptively in the custody of the mother. It has been for many years the fact that a father could only get custody of a child when he proved the mother to be totally unfit. That used to be the way it is. It's not that way anymore. And in fact, our legislature has moved towards the fact that both parents need to have a equal, if not equal, at least a shared parenting type situation. And I have to consider all of the facts. But in this case, it's clear to me that Ms. Tittle has great love for her child and great protection for her child, but that she has allowed her resentment of Mr. Westcott to cloud her vision about what is in the best interest of her child as far as encouraging a relationship with him. There's been some proof regarding the issues that Mr. Westcott has had in the past, and I acknowledge those facts. But there's no evidence before me that indicates to me that he poses a threat to the safety and well-being of this child. I do find that she has restricted his time with the child and that she's done so perhaps out of an abundance of caution, but also I think the proof has been in watching her testimony and the demeanor of her and her family as they testified, but that's also partially because of the resentment she may feel towards him. Her terminating the Venmo account because it made it too easy on him to support this child, and then that just, again, it speaks volumes in this court's opinion regarding her attitude about him and whether or not he should be included in this child's life on an equal basis or at least a regular basis. So I find that factor favors the father more than the mother. The refusal to attend a court-ordered parent education seminar is not before the court. Neither of them has attended, as far as I know. Both of them are ordered to attend to complete that education seminar. Disposition of each parent to provide the child with food, clothing, medical care. She's obviously been the one who's provided all of that care so far, with the limited exception of Mr. Westcott having finally come around and offered some money to her, or tried to give her some money. That doesn't necessarily favor her. I think he would have been willing to contribute to that. The degree to which each parent has been the primary caregiver.
Judge, does that mean both on number 4?
On number 4, in my opinion, it favors both, or neither. It favors neither of them. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. The disposition of each to provide the child with food and clothing, that is equal because he's offered and she's refused that. Number 5, the degree to which each parent has been the primary caregiver. I've found that favors her because she has been the person who is primarily caring for the child. The degree, the love, affection, emotional ties existing between each parent and the child. Everything I know is that they both love the child, and the child seems to be, I think from what I can tell at least, have a bond with both parents. The emotional needs and developmental level of the child, there's nothing before the court other than this is about a 1.5-year-old child. Moral, physical, mental, and emotional fitness of each parent as it relates to their ability to parent the child. I don't have anything to indicate that either of them has any physical or mental or emotional problems, so I don't find that factor applies in either case. Child's interaction with relationships with siblings, other relatives. Right now, that the child has a great relationship with Ms. Tittle's family, because that's where the child is 24/7. But it is a situation where the child has other relatives and other extended family, and so therefore, while that factor may favor the mother because that's the way it's been, the child has not had an opportunity to have a relationship, meaningful relationship with other extended family. The importance of continuity in the child's life and the length of time the child has lived in a stable, satisfactory environment. Clearly, the child has primarily been with the mother, and that factor would obviously favor the mother. Evidence of physical or emotional abuse to the child, I don't find that any of that applies. Character and behavior of other persons who reside in or frequent the home, again, I don't have any evidence of anything that would apply to either one of them. Each parent's I'm skipping over number 13, the reasonable preference of a child of 12 years of age would not apply. Each parent's employment schedule, and with that, Miss Tittle, her schedule is amenable to whatever she needs it to be, so it doesn't present a problem for her. His schedule is he works 5 days a week, and then he also takes classes in the evening, so his time is only available for him on the weekend. Any other factor deemed relevant by the court, and as far as the designation of a primary residential parent, I don't find that any of that it really applies, and therefore I find that the mother should be designated a temporary primary residential payment. This is on a temporary basis only, and subject to change as this case may move forward, depending on whether the parties are in compliance with this court's orders. I've explained to you both that I'm going to make what I think is a reasonable parenting plan. It is designed to protect the child and give the child a chance to adjust to the situation. First thing I would say is you need to probably find you a parenting class. I'm not putting in the court order, but I think it should be in the court order that I'm recommending, but not ordering, that he enter into a parenting class to teach him safety issues regarding young children and so forth, so that it can alleviate some of the issues that have been raised. And I say I'm not ordering it, but that would be a factor. If I have to hear this on a final basis, I'm going to look to see whether or not you've done that. If you haven't done that, then I'm going to know that you didn't take my recommendation very seriously, and that'll be a factor that will enter into the final decision. But it is legitimate that young children and fathers don't always think in this way, but young children don't have the sense of what is right or wrong, and so it's up to you as the father to protect your child and to make sure that he doesn't get exposed to something that's inappropriate for him. You got to have to child-proof your house. That's what it boils down to. Anybody who's ever had a child and a couple or anything else can tell you, child-proofing the house is a pain, but it is a necessary pain, and you're going to have to do that. And that also means keeping sharp instruments away from. And as a grandfather, I still have to remind myself to do that from time to time. I don't always think about it, and my wife is constantly telling me we have grandchildren over, don't do this, I have a granddaughter who has a peanut allergy. Well, I had a whole bag of peanuts I got at the Country View Market sitting in there on the shelf when she goes in to get things. So I got I got
We won't tell her you
and
said
if my
that.
wife is watching this, it was a very tactful and very loving reminder that this peanut allergy was a problem and therefore needed to be addressed. So in any event, it is something you're going to have to deal with. And she has a legitimate concern, and her grandmother has a legitimate concern about it's not just your job from this point forward to play with this child. It is your job to protect this child, to nurture this child. And fathers can be just as nurturing as mothers can under the appropriate circumstances, if given the chance and having the desire and willingness to do so. So his visitation from this point forward will be 6 hours on every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And that will be at the home of his sister. And it will be supervised by his sister until such time as he has produced a drug screen, which shows that his drug screen is clean. That will be a drug screen that's taken within the next 24 hours. I would say 48 hours, but we're supposed to be hit with a snowstorm. So let's do it within 24 hours.
He's going to leave here and do it, Judge.
All right.
What kind of drug screen do you want him to do?
I want 5-panel drug screen just to make sure if Mr. You have a desire on a drug screen?
Hair follicle.
A 6-panel?
I haven't heard of a six.
I
I know
haven't heard
10
of it.
panel and I know a 5-panel.
I've
and
heard
the
of
10
a
panels
5-panel hair follicle, and I've heard of a nail bed test. I don't care. I want something that indicates. Well, let's
Are
do
your
a
toenails
5-panel hair follicle within 24 hours.
A
If
hair follicle, you said?
yes, if that test is negative, then his time with his child will be after the initial visit, which will occur in just a moment. I'll tell you when that's going to be. His visit will be unsupervised, meaning that he will have the time with the child without having to have somebody hanging over your shoulder. This first visit will occur this Sunday, and this may be weather permitting, because if the weather is as bad as they say, Sunday, you may just have to wait a week. But if assuming that he does start it this Sunday, then it would be Sunday at 9 o'clock to 2 p.m. You would pick the child up wherever you two have exchanged it. I think at the police department. I don't know where you've been exchanging it. No, you haven't been. You've been going to her house. So let's just pick the child up. You have a driver's license. All right. You're going to have a car seat to transport the child.
Got one.
But he'll pick the child up. He will transport the child to his sister's home where he's living, and that's where the visitation will be. Don't take the child away right now. Let's just have it there, and she'll be supervising it. On the first weekend, I want her there with you supervising it. Thereafter, it's not required that it be supervised if you pass this drug screen. But it will be that he takes that test and it's clear within 24 hours. Only then will it be unscheduled, unsupervised. This will continue until, for a period of 4 weeks, and it will then, beginning, if it occurs this Sunday, then beginning on February the 8th of 2025, this will increase to 8 hours. And that will continue for a period of 4 weeks. And then beginning on March the 8th of 2025, he will have his first overnight. And that will be Saturday at noon until Sunday at 5 p.m. Again, this will be every weekend. And that will continue until the final hearing in this case. This is not conclusive nor binding upon this court or any court that hears this case. This is temporary in nature, and it may be adjusted or completely changed depending on the situation. The mother, Ms. Tittle, is free to petition the court to review this at any time that any issue arises that causes her to be concerned about the situation. In other words, I'm not saying that this is written in stone. This is what I've set forward as being the only thing I can come up with that moves him towards a more regular type of a relationship with the child. February the 8th, it will go on February the 8th, it will go to 8 hours, and it will be on Sunday, again, from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m., which would be the 8 hours as best I can tell. Whatever 8 hours is. 9 a.m., it'll start at 9 a.m. and go for 8 hours. Then beginning March the 8th, it will be Saturday at noon until Sunday at 5 p.m., again, every week until we have a final hearing. Ms. Tittle has the child every day during the week. Part of the reason that I'm doing this, I don't mind telling you, is that Ms. Tittle obviously is not with the child 24/7. She works and she has other people who are taking care of the child. We're going to put Mr. Westcott in position of trying to provide care for this child and to prove that he has the ability to do so. And you're going to have to reassure her that you are stable enough and mature enough and willing to do this and to do it without issues being. Because the last thing I want is for a child to have an issue because of this. He will begin paying current child support with a calculation based upon his testimony about the $24 an hour that he makes.
23, Judge.
23.
23.
$23 an hour that he makes on a 40-hour week. In addition to that, her income was, she testified she grossed 40 but netted 30. I don't know if she has proof of that, but she needs to produce proof of what her actual income is, tax returns or whatever, so that we can have a current income calculated for that. And if she doesn't do that, it'll be imputed to her. So obviously it'd be better in her best interest to provide that. If he has medical insurance provided, do you have medical insurance?
We need
available?
her to provide us with a social security number and he can get that.
All right. He'll maintain medical insurance on the child unless the parties otherwise agree. Any doctor's visits, she will notify him of the doctor's visit in advance so that he has the option to attend if he wishes to do so. Decisions on the child's benefit right now will be joint, with the mother having the final say only after the parties have discussed it. He will pay his child support by Venmo if that is his desire. So she'll reactivate that and unblock that Venmo account. If it makes it easier for him to pay, there are literally thousands of men who are coming into court that don't want to pay child support and fight it every tooth and nail. So you've got somebody who wants to pay it. Making it easier for him to pay it is just the most sensible thing to do it. And we're not going to let the animosity the two of you may have factor into how he pays his child support. I just want it paid, and there needs to be a record of how it's paid. And that will begin for the month of January, by the way. So he's going to have to start paying child support currently for this month. And by the time you get it calculated, you're looking at probably the 15th of the month before you can start the first payment. Ms. Duke can probably get it figured and tell you what the amount is, and you need to start making that payment even if the order hadn't been put down at that point.
Judge, do you have any problem, since he's paid weekly, for him to pay it weekly?
I don't have a problem, but you and Mr. Baker work that out. If he wants to pay it weekly, let him pay it weekly. However he's going to pay it, she will accept it in whatever form. In other words, if it's in a weekly in a check form, that's fine. If it's weekly in cash, that cash is more problematic because you got to have a receipt or something to prove you. It is your obligation to establish that you have complied with a court order regarding visitation. So paying with cash puts you at the mercy of getting a receipt. Pay with a check, pay by Venmo or something in that order. I don't even know what Venmo is, other than my kids use it all the time. But it's
well,
some sort of,
we were going to do it by wage assignment and make it a little bit easier, but
well,
Venmo
it's going to be
okay
temporary
too.
in nature for right now, so you may want to think about that, because clearly it's also going to depend on the division of time. And right now I've given you a schedule that you're moving towards, but it may not be the permanent schedule. So you may want to wait about the wage assignment until the final hearing.
We will. How many days, Judge, on the calculator?
You're going to have to figure that up. I've given you what this is. It will start out, I'm giving him typically it would be at least 90 days and 275, which would be the 365 per year. And for the purpose of calculating this, that's what I think we should use. Now, whatever's happened between the two of you in the past, she thought enough of you to let you know about her father. You have to understand that she has had concerns, and this child's been with her. This is, in her mind, she is responsible for supporting and protecting this child. So she's going to have to learn to share this child with you, because you two are going to have to co-parent this child together. You got a long way to go. You got 16 and a half years the two of you are going to have to deal with each other. The fact that you would call him is a good sign in my mind, and tell him about your dad and that he would be willing to do something to try to support you or help you, is the way it ought to be. You can't live together. You can't be together. You don't want to be married to each other. That's fine. You never were married. But you've got a child together. And this child should be the most important thing in your life. I know it is to Miss Tittle, and you're going to have to demonstrate that it's the most important thing in your life. Work is one thing. School is one thing. Putting the child first in your life is going to be the most important thing you can do to satisfy the mother of your child that you're taking this seriously, because her argument is you're not mature enough, you're not taking this seriously enough, you're not changing diapers, you're not doing the things that a parent has to do. And I can tell you that that's going to be a factor that I or whoever hears the final hearing in this case is going to look to see whether you're going to have to demonstrate that you can do the things that are necessary to be a good father, to be a good parent. And being a single parent is not much fun. It's not fun for her. Not fun for you. It won't be fun for you. But I've done the best I can do to come up with a plan that I think moves you towards a more normal relationship. As I explained to you, I'm sure it's not satisfactory to either one of you for right now, but it is a first step in the direction of trying to have the two of you co-parent this child together for the rest of the child's life. And I hope that you will, I'm not going to make the same speech that I made earlier, but both of you were probably in the courtroom and heard it. Put the child's interest first. Set aside the animosity that may have resulted, understandably, from you two going through this process. And make sure that every decision you make regarding this child is what will be in the child's best interest. And if you do that, then this child can grow up as well adjusted as if the two of you had gotten married and lived happily ever after. The child will know that mom and dad care about each other and care about me most of all and want my happiness to be first. If you get into this fussing and fighting and calling each other names and things that I see so often, you're going to ruin your child's entire life, and your child's going to grow up with all sorts of anxiety, all sorts of psychological and emotional issues that don't have to happen. So, good luck to both of you. This is a temporary order in nature, but we'll see whether or not that order will have to be modified at a later hearing.
Judge, if there are any false allegations from either party during the pendency of this temporary order, is this court going to take those, like, or do we have leave of court to file a motion if necessary?
Well, by false allegations, let's don't assume the worst of these parties. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, since I have to go home and lay my head on the pillow, I'm going to assume that everybody listened to what I had to say and thought it was so well spoken and so true that they're going to put it into play in their lives. The cynical side of lawyers, the cynical side of judges, is that there may not be that result, and that the parties may, in fact, ignore everything I've said and start trying to use things against each other and try to manipulate the situation. And certainly, this is not, as I said, this is not prohibiting her from coming back to court if she sees there is an issue. But clearly, false allegations are one of those factors, as we've said before, that the court will consider in making a final determination of custody. And because this is temporary in nature, any false allegations that are made in order to gain an advantage in this case will be considered by this court in the final analysis and will be held against the person who makes those false allegations. But I don't want to cut someone off from being able to say, to readdress an issue if the child's having problems, if there's some issue that needs to be addressed. I'm not going to assume somebody's going to make a final argument. I'm going to assume they love this child enough not to try to manipulate that. So I hope I'm right. I'm often wrong. We will go.
I wasn't shaking my head yes when you said you're often wrong.
Well, as I used to say about a judge I regularly appeared in front of him, he was often in error but never in doubt. So you can say that about me sometimes too. So, all right, that's the judgment of the court. Ms. Duke will prepare the order and submit it to Mr. Baker for his approval.
Thanks, Judge.
Okay, two of the things I noticed. The first one was when she laughed because he was in a car accident. I don't think that's funny. I don't think someone wrecking their car ever is funny, because you can get very hurt. And then the second thing is when she talked about him using Venmo to give her money and how ridiculous that was, and that it was just too easy for him. And so my response to her was, my thought actually to her would be, when are you going to start using cloth diapers? Because, disposable diapers are way too easy. Is she too lazy? I don't know. But it's cloth diapers and a washcloth, not wipes that go into the landfill, not diapers that go into a landfill, but a washing machine. That's where they go, a washing machine. Or actually, people used to use the washboard, right? Anyway, yeah, I just think that was her being very controlling. That is being extremely controlling. And I can't say much else because Judge Wolf has asked that we not say anything too bad about the people in his courtroom. So I won't say anything else. I'll just leave it at that and say thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.